June 6, 1944. The Allied invasion of Normandy has begun. Within the German camp, there was much anxiety about this event, and everyone wanted it to take place as soon as possible. For months, the German propaganda services had been announcing that the Allied intervention in France was imminent, and that the German army would succeed in repelling the invasion decisively. With this victory, they would achieve one of the greatest triumphs of the war. However, what happened was very different from what was expected. From the first hours of the battle, the Germans could see that the firepower deployed by the Americans and British was far superior to what they had themselves, and the combat was very unequal. The overwhelming material superiority of the Allies during the Battle of Normandy had a devastating impact on the German leadership. This imbalance resulted in a high number of casualties among German generals, reaching the figure of 10 army or division commanders who lost their lives during the course of the campaign. In this program, we will now analyze how each of them died. When the Allies landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, the deployment of the German divisions along the coast was as follows. The 77th Infantry Division protected the sector in front of St. Malo. On the Cotentin Peninsula, the 243rd Infantry Division protected the west bank and the 709th the east bank. In the middle of the peninsula, the 91st Infantry Division remained. This last unit had recently arrived in the sector on direct orders from Hitler, who had sensed that the Allied invasion was going to take place in Normandy. To the east, just off Omaha Beach, was the 352nd Infantry Division, and to its right was the 716th Division, which protected the rest of the coast to the mouth of the Orne. Finally, on the eastern bank of the Orne was the 711th Division. Inland, at a relatively short distance, were 3 panzer divisions. The first of these was the 21st Panzer Division, which was located south of Caen. A little further away, about a day's journey away, was the 12th SS Panzer Division, known as the Hitlerjugend Division, and even further away was the Panzer Lehr Division. So, once the invasion began, all of these units, along with many others, were sent to Normandy to try to contain the Allied advance. The first major general to be killed was Lieutenant General Wilhelm Falley of the 91st Infantry Division, who died on the same day the invasion began. Falley had his headquarters in a castle in the interior of the Cotentin Peninsula because he feared that his headquarters could be bombed during an Allied landing in Normandy. On the night of 5, the 6th of June, 1944, Falley was on his way to Rennes to take part in a simulation game about an Allied landing in Normandy. Suddenly, they began to see Allied planes flying overhead, which, although they did not yet know, were the planes that were going to drop the 2 parachute divisions in Cotentin. Faced with this situation, Falley ordered the driver to turn around and return to his headquarters. A little later, just before reaching his headquarters, a patrol of paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division ambushed the German Lieutenant General's car and ended his life. Thus, Falley became the first German division general to die in the Battle of Normandy. The next general to fall in combat during the Battle of Normandy did so accompanied by several others in one of the most audacious attacks of the British Air Force. It all began when the command staff of Panzer Group West set up their headquarters in the town of Lacaine, south of Caen, and began to transmit orders by radio to the different German units. The Allies quickly detected the radio signal traffic and sent an aerial reconnaissance mission that detected the presence of numerous officers' cars in the vicinity of a small castle in Lacaine. Immediately after, the British sent an air raid that on June 10th completely destroyed the place and put the entire leadership of Panzer Group West out of action. Most of the officers of Panzer Group West died in the operation, including General Hellmut von Dawans, who was the chief of staff. His grave can be visited today in the German War Cemetery at La Combe. The third general killed in the Battle of Normandy was someone who was considerably more famous than the previous 2 and who was in command of the German 84th Army Corps. We are referring to General Erich Marcks, who was killed on June 12th. Under his command, he had all the divisions present in Normandy, these being the 243rd, 319th, 352nd, 709th, and 716th Infantry Divisions. As a curiosity, on June 6, 1944, Marks turned 53, a date that also happens to be D-Day of the Allied offensive in Normandy. After the start of Operation Overlord, he was one of the first German generals to react to the Allied operations. Marks was a veteran of the Eastern Front and had lost a leg during Operation Barbarossa. Added to this was the death of 2 of his 3 sons on the Eastern Front. He was a man who took his job very seriously, and from the time he was placed in command of the 84th Army Corps in August 1943, he warned that the Allied landing would take place in Normandy. During an inspection at the front on June 12, 1944, he was surprised by an Allied air attack while he was driving between Carentan and Saint-Lô. In this attack, he was seriously wounded in the groin by a 20 mm shell that cut his femoral artery and caused his death. Nothing could save him from the overwhelming Allied air superiority. The next general is another of the most famous that we are going to see in the program, and he is a general belonging to the Waffen SS. Specifically, we are talking about Fritz Witt, who commanded the 12th Panzer Division of the Waffen SS, known as the Hitler Youth Division. Witt was a veteran of the Eastern Front, having fought for many years in the Leibstandarte Division, until in the summer of 1943 he took command of the new Hitler Youth Division. His division arrived in the combat zone in Normandy during the night of June 6th, and on the 7th was able to enter combat in the northwest sector of Caen. His famous general, who had been preparing for the occasion for a year, died just a week later on June 14th, when the English naval artillery bombarded his command post near the town of Venoix. Upon learning of his death, Dietrich said the following: "One of the best has gone. Witt was such a good soldier that he could not survive for long." After his death, Kurt Meyer replaced Witt in command of the Hitlerjugend Division. The 5th German general to die during the Battle of Normandy was Heinz Hellmich, who commanded the 243rd Infantry Division. Remember that this unit was defending the west coast of the Cotentin Peninsula, and after the assault on the east coast, the division was sent to the attacked sector. The Americans succeeded in cutting off the peninsula on June 17th, which was the same day that the general of the 243rd Division was killed. Like General Marks, Hellmich died as a result of an air raid in the central Cotentin sector. The next German general to die in this battle did so just 1 day later, on June 18th, and was the commander of the 77th Infantry Division named Rudolf Stegmann. This division was located in the south of Normandy, between Saint-Malo and Mount Saint-Michel, and was sent north to the base of the Cotentin Peninsula shortly after the Allied landing. His death occurred again as a result of an Allied air attack that attacked the vehicle in which General Stegmann was traveling. Next, we will see how another of the most important generals of the German army died in Normandy, this being General Dollman, who commanded the 7th Army. Dollman's death took place on June 28th in Cherbourg and remains full of controversy. At the end of June, the Germans in Cotentin had been isolated in Cherbourg and finally surrendered to the Americans. When Hitler learned of the surrender of the garrison of the city, he issued an order for Dollman to be tried. From here, there are 2 theories. The first is that the German general suffered a heart attack due to the bad news received, and the other is that he decided to take poison. In any case, he was the 7th most important German general to die during the Battle of Normandy. To see the next action, we have to go back to July 17th, when a field marshal was almost killed by an Allied air attack. We are referring to Field Marshal Erwin Rommel himself, who was brutally attacked by Allied aircraft while returning to his headquarters after having visited the front line. Although he did not die in the end, he was very close to doing so, and this attack put an end to his military career in the Second World War. As we have seen previously, there were quite a few generals who died as victims of enemy aircraft. The 8th general to die during this battle was General Drabich Waechter, commander of the 326th Infantry Division, on August 2nd. This unit was in the vicinity of the Pas de Calais when the Allies landed in Normandy, and was sent to the combat zone a few weeks later. The unit ended up in the vicinity of St. Lo and tried to block the American advance that was finally broken through during Operation Cobra. Its general ended up dying in combat on August 2nd, just one day after the Americans broke through the front in Avranches. And finally, the last general on our list is Dietrich Kraiss of the 352nd Infantry Division, who died on August 6th. As we mentioned at the beginning, the German 352nd Infantry Division was one of the most famous units in the Battle of Normandy, which began its fight in Omaha and ended at the Falaise siege. In other words, it fought for 2 months without interruption. Its commander, Dietrich Kraiss, was seriously wounded at the beginning of August by enemy artillery and ended up dying a few days later, specifically on August 6th. Well, now that we have seen all the generals who died as a direct consequence of the battle, let's look at one last death of a marshal closely related to the Battle of Normandy. Field Marshal von Kluge died on August 18, 1944, in circumstances related to the collapse of German forces in Normandy and suspicions of his possible involvement in the failed plot against Hitler on the 20th of July. After the disaster in the Falaise pocket and his dismissal as Commander-in-Chief of the Western Front, Kluge was ordered to return to Germany. During his journey, he stopped in Metz, where he consumed a cyanide capsule, apparently out of fear of reprisals from Hitler, who suspected his disloyalty. He was taken to a hospital, but died shortly afterward. Shortly before he died, he wrote a letter to Hitler, suggesting an end to hostilities on the Western Front. Before we finish the video, we need to analyze what the general cause of most of the German casualties in Normandy was. In total, it is estimated that 63,000 German soldiers died in the Battle of Normandy. Of these, 55% died as a result of Allied artillery. 20% died from direct fire in combat against enemy infantry or armor. Another 18% fell victim to air raids, which is the area in which the most generals died. From here on, there are all kinds of deaths due to traffic accidents, diseases, mines, gun accidents, and other similar events. So, what did you think of the program? Do you think the number of division generals who died during this battle is exaggerated?